Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 28th of June. Well, this is not all that shocking. We got right up to the 61% and could not get over it, and it got rejected. Didn't quite hit the 50 or any of the numbers in between. I mean, we had talked about the 19 and a quarter, 61% as being a pivotal point. It started off early in the morning, getting up through there after, we'll look at it on the 5K, but there was some significant downdraft, and then it got bought back up, and so we went all the way from 48 to 01 and back again. So it was quite a run. Now, we were expecting some revisits to the 204 range, and everything that the 5K chart was giving us really worked out beautifully. We've been in this short signal for some time, and it's just continued to get a little softer. We had a couple of points of steel rising, which were enough impetus to keep things holding on, but clearly wasn't enough. Now, ES is at the 50% or nearing it, and you have the NQ just barely below the 61, though it has taken out the previous low range. And interestingly enough, though, it's still a much better DLC overall without any dips below the red line compared to the ES. So, relatively speaking, the Nasdaq is still performing better. Of course, the Euro still can't get above that 23%, and we just expect that to keep getting blocked at that point. We're looking for it to make a new low back into the range. We follow that line right there. It's right around the 15 range. Breaking back inside is the high side of the range, which goes all the way down to like 11. And that's because the EU's got some serious issues. Now, of course, in this free-for-all, yields continuing to take a nosedive there as we're now back at the peaks from, at the end of May. It's crazy. Some people are expecting turning to oil. You can see we've made new highs. This is going to have broader inflation impact. So you got to question why interest rates, is sort of an inverse. But, when you get this kind of a volatility thing, people just want to get to safety as far as the markets go, and they'll figure it out later. They're not really worried about yields as much as they are about just, protecting capital at this particular point. But this oil situation could continue with what we're looking at. We've got a couple of positive extremes, but we had a full reset, cyan under red from earlier, and just following that ABM reset. And the hemorrhage in gold continues. This just hasn't changed. There's just been no buy whatsoever taking place. I mean, you haven't even had a green pop over, not even an attempt to cross over and fall. We're getting into some pretty unprecedented area with those readings. So here we go. Look at this mess. Now, I sent out for everybody my paint bar as well as the dots so that you would have these going into the day. What I'm going to do is slide this over, and we're going to go ahead and enlarge this a little bit. I just wanted to show the full range of the day so that you'd be able to look at it. Make it a little bigger here. I'll go one more, just so that we can get uptight. So we started out with this white dot, white candle, which is not an MBI, but it's that precursor setup that represents the algo split. That's usually, even if you get a positive move from there, it's one of those like the positive extremes that we get a retrace to. Not to mention, in this particular case, it was a positive extreme. So you have positive extreme, which is the red dot. So we expected that low to be taken out once came in, and sure enough, not only does that happen, but it happens at the same time you're starting to develop some really strong snake behavior. So that even began right here, where that's just referring to the orange being above steel with the cyan in the middle, and then it does it again over here right as we begin to break down. And then we get gold. Gold normally, if you're above the 50%, is great because you expect it to go to the highs, but below 50%, you expect it to go to the lows. Well, below 23% at the low, you're going to make new lows, and that's exactly what happened. Now, we had 704.75. I'd have to shrink the chart. Maybe we could just slide back. We can look at what that was. That was a previous white candle that we ended up with a very bullish runoff of a couple of days ago, but had not been filled back in because we came across here and boom, shot up. And so it was the next viable number that I kept talking about. So fast forward to where we are in the current realm. And that became a very attractive. We got so close to it. I thought, they're just trying to make me look bad. As we got to 204, 75 was right there, but the low was 2705.50, I believe. If I can get that to pop up here. Yeah, 2705.50. Oh my goodness! And we ended up with this nice buy configuration that developed right there. We got above the 23 with that, and put in a little dot. And as soon as we got to the 50, went for a brief short of that one. But I could see that with the rising red, next opportunity, and boom, then we got to the 50 and flipped around long to that one. And sure enough, it caught it all the way with gold, brought it all the way back up to the highs as we were coming across here. And then as we started moving across up into the peak areas right above this previous white candle that it still had left over from the 33 going on, we started making a series of positive extremes, which is that at this magenta line, the first of the little red dots, and then the blue one is what I call the snake, which is just that beginning of the orange with steel opening up. But usually you're going to have the tongue, which is the cyan in between it. Hadn't quite happened there yet. So we continued to make a little bit more highs. It was a little bit weaker configuration, and it hadn't quite filled that 3750 either, going back through there. Then we popped up even some more positive extremes. Those got filled pretty quickly, and then this last one, much cleaner. So you see the difference here? Here you didn't have the steel into the mouth, so to speak, and here the cyan moves in above the steel right there. And instead of being down at that negative 7.5, which is much more bullish, it's usually negative 6.25, right here we finally ended up with much more bearish. So I wanted to show the comparison between the difference on those two. And it's not that you couldn't expect a positive extreme retrace of this, because you still do. It just, you were going to have to wait for it. And not coincidentally ended up right around that 48 level, which was a convergence point from a while back. But sure enough, retraces, fills in the positive extreme, and then actually has a downdraft a little bit further. But the critical part of it is that boom, right here, puts it in a white candle right in the middle of the range, and then starts to pop up, and that became another opportunity to attack that same opening setup here, just a little bit different. This time you had a much more dramatic cyan rise within that initial setup, and that one produced a very simple setup for me. I was looking for anything that was overbought or even remotely looking bearish, which is the opening between the cyan right here and the green failing, and that gave a very specific target of the 33, which was the reset of the white candle. And sure enough, came right to it, but at that particular point, right in the middle of the bearish move, and so it continued to go down. And then another dream came in here, gold candle below the 23%, which meant that every time we were going to get up here or even a little higher, it was an opportunity to short that one for a move back to the lows. And as soon as it came back to the lows, you can see no orange reset whatsoever. That doesn't take place till all the way over here. And guess what happens as soon as it does? Another white candle at 27.20. So at this particular point, I'm thinking, we still got a shot at making that 27.04. And sure enough, put in a blue candle in between here, but then finally positive stream below the 23%. Can you believe that? Getting into the red. And that led us to low, another set of gold candles. And so if we popped to the 23, was an opportunity to attack that one. And it broke down as well. No new buys until we got all the way down to what? Below the 27.04 which we have been talking about. Down to 27.03 Yeah, you just gotta love that. It was just beautiful stuff right there. So a full move down below, a move up 50 points, and then a move all the way back down another 40 some points. And in fact, even in the after hours, we dipped all the way down to the, what was it, 2701 even, which is the 0% now. Yeah, right there. And we're right at that same 27,504, but it was perfect timing getting this, even though I haven't finished how I want the adjustments to go when it comes to some of these short signals, because I want to turn those candles red on these key signals so that you'll have it, and this will stay red all the way through until it meets the necessary turnaround color, and the same thing on the bottom side. But overall, I wanted to be able to get you the propensity of these white candles is very high, 80+% from their retrace values. So as we've seen over the last weeks, it's been just a beautiful way to perceive estimated retraces. And so now that's in the arsenal. It's not something, well, it certainly is something that could have been created if you had the proper parameters for it. The dots, I went over those pretty clearly. They're basically just the representation of the extremes, so that you can just have fewer indicators visible, because we don't really care much about the cyan ones, because they don't do anything per se, other than just give us context to when we have the significant ones, which are the yellow, the red, the dips below the red line, which are the magenta, and then obviously the green ones here that are the bullish little pops that develop in between. So we can see that there was a series of them building, so they might be getting ready for a little bit of a pop, though we can see that they're probably going to hit quite a bit of resistance going through here. All in all, fantastic day. Just a beautiful way to get close to the end of the month. I know there was a lot of news. A new Supreme Court justice pick is going to be coming out, and the early news was the aversion of the trade war, but it didn't change what was going on from the daily chart. That was still expressing the weakness. So there you have it, the long and the short of it, and quite an exciting developments with the pay bar readings, as well as the power of those dots, and they're going to continue to be updated. So all in all, going to be very exciting July. Looking forward to it. As always, though, trade well, and I will be gone all of the day. Tomorrow I'll be in Pompeii, so you won't hear anything back from me until Friday, as far as posting on the Skype chat or anything. So trade well in my absence, and I'll be back for Friday. As always, have a good one.